Hey, how's it going? And welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to look at selling used car parts on eBay and why I found that it just doesn't work in Australia as well as it does in the UK and the United States. And what the results I've found are pretty staggering, really. If you have been trying to sell used car parts on eBay and you're struggling, this will give you the reason why. And it's not that eBay doesn't work; it doesn't seem to work for used car parts. And I've also found new car parts as well, which is I'll do a separate video for that, but that's even worse. So you'll see what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask ChatGPT what are the best-selling cars in Australia, and then a couple of other countries as well. And then I'm going to take what its results are and then search used vehicle parts. And then I'm going to also look at completed listings, like sold items compared to what's listed. So you'll understand well, as I get on and as I start doing it, and you'll see the results. And I've also got like a spreadsheet to put it down, and you'll see what I found. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so I put into ChatGPT over the last 5 to 10 years what are the best-selling vehicle makes in Australia. I asked it to give me the top five. And it's come back with Toyota, Ford, Mazda, Kia, and Hyundai. Now I asked it to do the same for the UK, and it come back with something different basically, which it would be obviously. So their number one selling vehicle is Volkswagen, and then it's BMW, Ford, Kia, Toyota, or Audi. I know there's Vauxhall still does well in the UK. And also there's like Porsche and Mercedes and things like that, because they do like the German cars. So I'm also going to ask it to do the same for the US. So it's got Toyota, Ford, Chevrolet, Honda, Hyundai. So it gives us an overall look, basically. There's probably a few more that you could add to the US. There's Dodge. There's also Ram trucks. There's Nissan. That could be and also there's Honda there as well. So there's a few. They've got this few Japanese there. So what I've done is I've put these into a spreadsheet. So I'm going to go onto eBay and I'm going to search those vehicles. So and then you can actually see then on the spreadsheet, which I'll bring up at the end, of what we're going to do. So if I so I'm going to search Toyota, and I'm going to go down to vehicle parts and accessories and search. Now it brings up like a subcategory, because if I just leave it on that, it's going to bring up it can bring up obviously car and truck parts, but it also bring up clothing, vehicle electronics, manuals and things like that. So I'm going to click on that. So we've got car and truck parts and accessories. Now I want to just go down this short list, and I want to put the condition as used. And there it says it's 1.3 million parts listed, but that's like worldwide, because the item location is default. So I want to put Australia only, and then we've got 200,000 plus parts. When I look at this, it actually says there's 215,000 there. So anyway, so in Australia, used vehicle parts, currently there's over 200,000, well, it's like nearly 215,000 parts listed. Now when I did this yesterday, it said there was actually 210,000 listed. It was a bit more accurate, so I've stuck to that. So if I go to sold items now, and these are items that sold in the last 3 months, and that number's pretty much the same as what I got. So it's 6,900 parts have sold. Now that 210,000 parts that can move about a bit, over the last 3 months, but it's going to pretty much stay, around that figure. But in a year's time, it could change. So if you're watching this video in like a year's time or whatever, or 6 months time or 2 years time, these figures could definitely change. But this is something you can search yourself for on eBay, so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, I'll do the next popular vehicle in Australia. Let's see what it said for Australia. Let's have a look. So there was Toyota, Ford. Let's just pick one of those. I'll pick Hyundai, for example. So it's saying there's 120,000 parts listed. So these are used Hyundai parts. Okay, do the same again then. So I put this all onto a spreadsheet so you can see as I go on, and it's saying that sold is 3,200 parts. So that's not many sold really out of 120,000 parts, really, when you come to think about it. So I'll do another one. I'll just go back to chat and see what it said. Yeah, Mazda was another one. And it's not, I haven't clicked sold yet because I want to see what's listed currently. So there's 100,000 used parts listed. And in the last 3 months, 90 days, it would be 3,600 parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a spreadsheet of listed parts, what's sold and what's the sell-through rate, or what's the sales rate percentage, like the ratio. And you can see what's selling. So for example, that's around about just over 3%, really. So for example, if you'd bought a car in salvage, and you stripped all the parts off it and you cleaned all the parts and photographed them and listed them on eBay, and you listed 100 parts, in theory, according to these fines, 3%, you're only going to basically sell 3 parts. Now, this all depends on what Mazdas that are out there. So there might be some models, like the Mazda 3 or whatever, that's very popular, that could sell more parts than other Mazdas. So this is just basically the makes that we're going. We're not actually going for the models. So I tell you what, there is another vehicle we can do in Australia which is very popular, and I know it's probably, when you search make and model, it'll probably be the best selling make and model there is. So it's the Ford Ranger, and that says when I asked chat the other week, it said Ford Ranger was the best selling make and model over the last 5 to 10 years. So I'm going to go on used. So it's saying that there's 34,000 parts listed used for the Ford Ranger. So I'm going to click on sold, and 1,300 parts. So I'm going to come out of this, and I'm going to go to ebay.co.uk, which is the UK eBay. Now, it works pretty much similar. So let's go back to chat. Now let's put some of these in. We'll pick Volkswagen to start with. I found that the UK eBay works very similar to the Australian eBay. The categories are very similar. Used Volkswagen parts in the UK only, car parts and accessories, 220,000 parts listed currently for sale. So if I put sold items, now this is sold over the last 3 months, it's saying that 90,000 parts have sold. That's quite a good percentage, really. That is really, really good percentage. So let's pick Ford. I used to live in the UK, and I know that the Ford's a very popular make, and Vauxhall is as well. And you see a lot of German cars going around as well. So people love the luxury of the German car, like the Mercedes and the Audi and things like that. So okay, so Ford used parts, car parts and accessories, all used. So there's 650,000 parts listed currently on eBay. Look at sold items, and 100,000 have sold. So again, it's not a bad percentage really, but you'll see how I've brought it up in the Excel sheet. I'll do another one. Like I said, you can, if you're specifically wanting to do a make and make, you can do this and search for models and find out which models. So it's not just the makes. You can have some models, because you could have like Fords, and there could be a certain Ford or a certain Vauxhall that sells well, a certain model. So there's 430,000 Vauxhall parts, used Vauxhall parts listed. If I go to sold items, 67,000 parts have sold in the last 3 months. Okay. Now, so that's two countries that we've done. We've done Australia and we've done the UK, and the next one we'll do is the United States. But I just wanted to say about, like I said, I sold used car parts for like 12 years when I was in the UK, and it was fantastic. I found it really interesting. It kept you fit because you were physical, obviously stripping the cars, and I had a proper workshop to do it with as well. I didn't do it from home. I had like a proper workshop with storage and a place to keep engines, and plus it was because it was a workshop. I had the couriers could come and they could back the wagons in and put stuff on. So it's quite hard to do it from home unless you've got like you live rural or something. You've got quite a bit of land with it. Where just doing it from a normal suburb house, it's not really ideal. Plus you might have like council and neighbours complaining and things like that. So, but it can work really well, and it sort of works different to selling new parts. New parts can be even more difficult, and the margins are completely way out. They're actually worse because people do like a lot of advertising of drop shipping of drop shipping new parts, so they don't even hold the new parts, and then when they sell them, they obviously then go onto some place in China and then sell the new part, and it's a patent part usually, so it's not like genuine parts. So they can list like millions. They could be listed on millions. I'll do like a quick. We'll jump onto it, and I'll do you just a quick example of a new part. How many are listed? We'll go on to the Australian one. So I'm on Toyota. Used parts in Australia. Vehicle parts and accessories. Like before, 210. I'm just going to show you an example of how the difference is when you put new parts, and how selling new parts is like really, really hard to sell new parts because you're just being undercut by all these big companies. So that's used. Let's take used off and go to new. That shoots up to 2.2 million from 210,000 parts listed. 2.2 million new parts, and I'll do a video on you, but I just want to show you an example of what it is, and this is general as well, so it's covering everything really. If I go to car parts, it's like 2.1 million. So that's because the vehicle parts and accessories, you'll have like tools and manuals and electronics like Bluetooth things and things like that, which is not like proper parts like suspension and interior parts and engine parts and rear lights and headlights and things like that. So, but new parts, it's showing there's 210. Now, if I do a default to that, because that's Australia, that's people buying from China, so stuff's coming from China as well, and all over the place, and these like, you click onto some of these and they won't even be in Australia, they'll just be drop shipping. So there's like 6.3 million parts. If I click on sold, now 400,000, so 6.3 million parts and then 400,000, you have to work out that percentage, and it's not a great sales percentage really. So, but anyway, let's come out of that. So now I'm on eBay.com. So this is the American eBay. So that was the UK one. No, that was the Australian one. That was the UK one. This is the American one. Now this, let's go back to chat, and it said that one of its top selling vehicles was Toyota. So let's put Toyota in. Toyota's massive, isn't it? It just sells everywhere. So let's put that in Toyota. Now the categories on these is different to the UK and Australia. You know, we had vehicle parts and accessories. Now they don't have that. They have this eBay Motors. So you've got to click into that, and then your vehicle parts and accessories are inside eBay Motors. And then you've got car and truck parts accessories. Okay, so used Toyota parts in the United States under car and truck parts and accessories, it's saying there's 180,000 listed, right? And then I'm going to go to sold items, and it's saying there's 42,000 sold out of 180,000 listed, which is not bad percentage really. So the next one's let's have a look at Chevrolet and Ford, because we know that they're popular. So let's have a look at Ford. Ford used parts in the United States. It's saying there's 170,000 listed. Right, if I click on sold items, it's saying 48,000 have sold in the last 3 months out of 170. So it's not bad. So let's have a look at the last one, and then we'll have a look at our spreadsheet. So Chevrolet. So I'm looking at Chevrolet parts and accessories in the United States, and it's under. Let me have a look. I've got it under used, and it's saying there's 85,000 listed. So 85,000 used parts listed for Chevrolet. If I put sold items, it's saying there's 40,000 sold. So that is a really good percentage, a selling percentage. So I'm going to have a look at the. So we've done the 3 countries. I'm going to have a look at the spreadsheet now, and this is where you'll see what I mean about it just doesn't work well in Australia. Okay, so this is the spreadsheets I've got. So I've put in basically the common vehicles that we're saying on chat, which was like Toyota, Mazda, Hyundai, Kia. eBay was saying there's 33,000 parts listed and 1.3 thousand sold. So that's a sales percentage of 3.9%. So that's like the sale through of parts listed and then parts sold, because that's going to be the amount that's going to be usually listed. And in the last 3 months, so that's basically saying that's like nearly 4%. So if you'd had a Ford Ranger and you stripped it for parts and you put 100 parts on eBay, you're with this percentage you're only going to sell like 4 items out of that 100. I had something worse than this. I had a Volkswagen Jetta that with the engine was like knackered in it. So I stripped all the other parts off it and took what I could. And I had about 100 parts I did, and I put them on eBay. And I sold 2 parts. Right, out of 100 parts, I sold 2 parts, and I'd advertised them, I promoted them, I put the parts, kept dropping the prices. I had like headlights up for sale for like $30, plus the postage, which is pretty cheap for a headlight, really. Still, no one was interested in them. So, but when I looked, there was just like too many up for sale, and I don't know why maybe people just don't want to buy used parts in Australia. Maybe they want to buy new parts. But there's a reason why people buy used parts. It's not because they haven't got money to buy new parts. They buy used parts maybe because it is that they're lower in price. They're also want to recycle as well. They don't believe in throwing old parts out that could be salvaged. So it's a bit of a recycling thing. They're just a bit more environmentally friendly if you can buy used parts instead of just keeping buying new parts. And also as well, some new parts get discontinued, so you have no choice but to buy used parts, especially if it's an older vehicle, especially classics as well. So anyway, let's have a look at Toyota. Yeah, 210 listed, 6,900. So that's like 3.3%. They got Mazda, 3.4% sales percentage. Hyundai, and then even down to Kia, which is 2.1, basically 2.13%. So there's 61,000 used parts on eBay, and then in the last 3 months, it's 1.3 thousand have sold, which is terrible, really. So, and this is why it doesn't work in Australia. So this is, you're going to see now, compared to the United Kingdom, which is what I was highly experienced with for 12 years. Volkswagen, right? There was, when we looked on that eBay, there was 220,000 parts listed, right? And 90,000 parts had sold over the last 3 months. That's like nearly 41%. That's incredible. That's a real. If you're in the United Kingdom, you should get onto buying in Volkswagen parts, because they look like they're selling quite a lot of parts. So out of the whole list I've got here, they're probably nearly the best selling. Vauxhall, there's 430,000 parts, used parts for sale. 67,000 have sold, so that's like 15%. And you got Ford, which is 15%. Tesla, that's got a sales rate of 15%. And then you got Audi. They're all around this 15%. Audi, Porsche, BMW, then it's like 13%. And Mercedes-Benz is 11.3%. But even the Mercedes-Benz, like 600,000 parts listed, and only 68,000 parts have sold in the last 3 months. But that's still way higher than anything in Australia. Even the lowest I found was much higher. Now we're coming to the United States, and this is where it's really impressive. I'll try and keep that up like that on this so we can see it all. Now Chevrolet, there was 84,000 parts listed on the United States eBay, and 36,000 sold in the last 3 months. That's 42.8. That's a really good percentage. That is a really, really, really good percentage. So basically, and I know it does depend on which Chevrolet. You could be finding there's a lot of Chevrolets in America anyway. So you'd have to, if you were gonna just specialize in Chevrolet, then you'd have to find out which models. Whether it's going to be the Silverado, the Malibus, or any whatever Chevrolets are out there. So if for example, if you bought a Chevrolet, one of the ones that do well, and you stripped it for parts, and you put 100 parts on eBay, then you're looking at that rate of 42%. That's 42 parts out of the 100 you've got listed. So that's a good sales rate. That's in 3 months. So you've got like 60 other parts, and they could sell the few months afterwards. So that's a really good rate. And then the Ram trucks, there's not many parts listed. 26,000 parts, which is pretty much the same as it's similar to the Ford Ranger in Australia, parts numbers, but 26. But they sold much more. They've sold like 9,700. So that's a good sales rate. It's like 37%. Then the Dodge is 29%. Ford is 28%. Toyota's 22, Honda's 20, and then Nissan is like the lowest I found anyway, which is like 16%. Now there could be other vehicles on there that are you just keep searching and searching and searching. There could be other vehicles on there which are pretty rare. So there might not be many parts listed, and what parts do go on, they sell quite well. There could be things like like Lamborghini or Bentley or Rolls Royce and things like that. Other Ferrari maybe, and other sportsy or exotic or luxury cars. And they could there might not be many parts on there, and then the parts that do go on there, because people want them, especially if the price reasonably, they sell pretty quickly. So you could get like a high percentage, like 50, 60, maybe 70%. But the only trouble with that is specialising in them cars is they're going to be expensive to buy as a salvage car if you're going to buy them and part them out. You're going to get ones that are going to be completely destroyed, like the back end hanging off it or something like that, and they're still going to be expensive to buy. Things like Lamborghinis and Ferraris, Bentleys, Rolls Royce, Maserati, Aston Martin, things like that. They're going to be and so you're going to have to put some premium prices on to these used parts just to try and make your money back, really. So, but that's basically it. Another thing I want to say, if you're going to get into used parts, I had a friend in the UK that had a salvage yard, a big scrap yard, and he said his rule of thumb was, and this is when I spoke to him years ago, even before I got into it. He said his rule of thumb was he would only, when he used to buy cars, when people used to buy scrap cars in, or he'd go and pick up scrap cars and things like that, or they was offered scrap cars or salvage cars, he would only buy them in at what he knew he would sell the engine for. So, and the engine's always, if the engine's good in it, you knew you could sell the engine quite quickly. So, and so he would sell the engine at what he bought the vehicle for, and that basically paid for the vehicle, and then the rest of the car was just pure profit. So you had the wheels, the leather interior, like the sat nav, all the electronics, the brakes and suspension, body panels, like ECUs and things like that. Seat belts, if they haven't been in a crash where the seat belts have gone off, you know what I mean, that they pull in, or the airbags. It's hard to sell airbags unless people are picking them up, because it's really hard to ship things like that. And especially trying to ship them abroad, it's virtually impossible. So, because they're explosive. So, but there's so many parts. There's like lights and things like that. So there's so many parts that are in a car that you can make profit off. So if you get cars with a good engine, just you sort of only pay for that car what you're going to sell the engine for, and that rule of thumb seems to work really, really well. So, but anyway, coming back to that. That basically those numbers goes to show that it just doesn't work very well. I'm not saying it doesn't work at all in Australia. But compared to UK and Europe and the United States, if you're struggling trying to sell used parts in Australia, then that's the explanation. Why, and it's. And I hope this video has been valuable, because if you didn't know, you would just think, if you're in Australia and you're struggling trying to sell parts and you're only selling so many, and you just think that that's the way it is. And I suppose it is, really. So, and there's unless you leave Australia and go and live in one of those other countries to do it, then that's all you're gonna be sort of dealing with, really. So I've even sold motorcycle parts on eBay here in Australia, and they sold well, but they only sold at a certain price, and all I ever did was break even, because it was so expensive to buy the motorcycles in the first place. So like CBR 500s and Ninjas, like Kawasaki Ninja 650s and or 250s and things like that. But the trouble was because the motorcycles are quite rare, salvage to get, everyone wants them, and when you're on the auction, you're just bidding them up. They're just going up. So I was like paying $2,000 for a cat, like a damaged, salvaged Kawasaki Ninja. And then by the time I'd parted it out and took all the parts off and cleaned them, photographed them, and then listed them, and labeled them, and listed them on eBay, all that time, and it is quite time consuming. I basically, by the time they'd all sold and eBay had took all their fees, and then there was the postage and things like that, and then also my tax that I pay, my income tax, I'd basically made $2,000 on the whole bike on all the parts, and then the rest of the parts were just like lying about, just weren't selling. And it's broke even, so it proved it didn't work. The only way it would have worked is if I'd got the bikes for like $500, and then I could obviously make $1,500 on that bike, but it has to be quite a fast turnover really to make that type of money. So, but it's just one of those things, I suppose. Here in Australia, it must be because of the low population. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope that's been pretty helpful. So thanks a lot. See ya.